Welcome to the Soccer Coaching Podcast, brought to you in association with our friends at Soccer Coach Weekly, reflecting our shared ambition to help coaches have the most effective, enjoyable and successful coaching journey for them and their players. We hope you enjoyed this episode and thanks for listening. Mark, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Hi, Scott. Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. Very well, thank you.
Honestly, as always, it is entirely my pleasure. Thank you so much for being so kind as to say yes very quickly and making yourself available. I also know that it could be a well-earned day off for you. You've given up some time to spend with us. So very grateful indeed. Obviously, I knew you before because of some of the stuff you've done through the podcast and other work that you've done. I've now got the privilege of having you as one of our tutors on our UEFA B course. So I think it's more pressure on me. Or you. I think it's more pressure on me, isn't it? I'm sure. But I get a chance to turn the tables a little bit and put some pressure on you, hopefully, for a few questions. But for those that don't know you, Mark, or haven't heard the podcast, stuff like that, just a little bit about your background and what it is you currently do.
Yeah, so I'm currently pre-academy manager at Arsenal, and what that essentially means is trying to, I suppose, put together a group of boys that are going to enter their academy journey from next season. It's a bit like an under-8s transfer window, really, season long. All great fun, and it's something that we love doing. We love football, and we like seeing these boys progress and develop. But winding it back from there, I spent 10 years at the English Football Association, more recently as a county coach developer, so delivering things like the level 1, the level 2, which has obviously been changed now, and as you know, Scott, the UEFA B also. So that kind of stuff, which I really enjoy, and it's about, for me, using a bit of, I suppose, emotional intelligence and being able to empathise with the learners, because these are all journeys that I've been on in my career, and I know how difficult they can be at times and anxiety inducing. So for me, it's just trying to reassure people and just make sure that they're in a nice, warm, friendly, cozy environment for to allow learning to take place. So that's the kind of stuff that I really still enjoy doing, and having an employer like Arsenal, they're still open for me to continue stuff like that, which is great. And then going back from there, it was sort of community stuff, really, which again is really close to my heart. So working at a variety of different clubs in different guises, but community managers, community coach, which is where I think some of the real work's done. It's great where you're at a elite environment such as at Arsenal, but working with Grassroots and trying to play a part in sort of the introduction of the game for lots of children of different ages and different abilities is always going to be close to my heart, really. So that's what I've done, and then prior to that, it was sort of sports centre work, and I think, like many people, you kind of realise to yourself, what is it that I love doing? What is it I've got a passion for? And for me, it was always football. And you realise that I probably wasn't at the level to make it at a professional grade, but I'm not one of these that's going to sit here and say I had this horrendous hamstring injury that prevented making 50 international appearances. It just simply wasn't at the level, wasn't good enough. But I do remember when you have like careers advisors at school, and there was one that was sort of saying to me, what is it you want to do, Mark? And for me it was football. And I just remember her saying, you need to think about getting a real job. Whatever a real job was. I don't know. I still don't know what a real job is, but and it really just threw me off, really. And I thought, a real job. Okay, let's go and look into that. And I just was unhappy. And I mean, it's great that you're able to do those jobs and then realise and have an understanding that this is not what I want to do as a career. So inadvertently, I suppose she kind of inspired me to go down the football route. So kind of a back to front way of answering that question, Scott, but I think we probably got there.
It's a perfect answer. You've got a lot of careers advisors, haven't you? Like one way or another, they find a way to influence you. Honestly, Mark, I remember our one. She told us you were either going to be a baggage handler or a lawyer. There was
Wow,
nothing else in between. And I was like,
yeah,
okay, fair enough. Um, but
brilliant.
yeah, I'm always interested to know, like, especially like I've had the privilege of seeing you do your coaching
Mm.
sessions, and you're a whole level that we aspire to get to. Um, how much of you getting into coaching and your coaching style is built on or influenced by your own playing journeys, like by coaching, like
Mm.
the coaches that had you when you were younger and how they influenced you? Was it a good experience or a bad experience? And is that part of how
Yeah,
you deliver now?
yeah, what a great question. I think, yeah, and it is, Scott. You know, I always remember a coach when I was playing sort of semi-professional in youth teams, and it was very much a command style approach,
Yeah.
very authoritarian, very much, you need to listen. I'm going to tell you what to do. And I mean, we talked about it probably on the last block of the OFB, Scott, but we all learn in completely different ways. And for me, I was very much that sort of kinesthetic learner, the doer. I wanted to be moving and doing stuff. And I didn't understand what he wanted me to do. And he was getting increasingly frustrated. And there was a group of, let's say, 16 of us. And I get it that a third of that group would have gone, yeah, brilliant, we know what to do. But I found it more of a sort of a test, and I just didn't understand. So naturally, then for me, I would gravitate towards the back of the group and kind of look and see what the front of the group were doing. Because at that age, at sort of 15, 16, I just didn't have a voice. I wasn't able to question the coach and say, can you explain it again? I don't understand. And partly that was because of the environment that wasn't created
Yeah.
for me for learning to take place. So it became increasingly frustrating. So, sort of circling back around, I kind of use that sort of empathetic approach, I suppose, to go, hold on, there might be learners in this classroom, or people that I've coached over the years that are not getting it. So it's down to me as a practitioner to be able to draw on those experiences and explain things in a different way to try and catch people in rather than catch people out.
Absolutely, yeah, brilliant. I always think that you can't separate your own journey, can you, from kind of your coaching style? Well, good, bad, or indifferent. I think you're
Yeah.
influenced by that. Brilliant. Thank you so much. And obviously, pre-academy at Arsenal, then a fantastic environment. I've had the privilege of being there a few times to watch different coaches do sessions, and it's always unbelievable. Not just the sessions,
Yeah.
but the players as well. I don't mean how they play their football, because I'm sure that's pretty, consistent across,
Mm.
Cat One academies. But just the players' attitude, their behaviour, their respectfulness, all the other stuff that comes from that life skill things from the very younger age, from the very young ages all the way up to the YDP phase, stuff like that. How much do you enjoy the pre-academy then? Is it an age group that you like being involved in, the younger ones, or is it because actually, do you know what, that's where I am right now, and who knows where I'm going to go to?
Yeah, I love it. At the FA, worked as part of the skills program for 5 to 11 year olds, and it was a time in my life where I thought, well, I've got this coaching thing sorted out. I think I'm all right as a coach, and I know what there is to know. Very, very naive, Scott. Then,
Always a dangerous thought, that
uh,
one, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah,
that's the minute you
yeah,
slip up when you think that.
yeah. And going into that, you're just open to this real, plethora of richness with regards to learning and being able to absorb. And if you've got the right mindset, intrinsically motivated by stuff like that, then, for me, it was the best 5 or 6 years easily in my coaching journey, easily. I mean, that's why I would probably use the word practitioner as opposed to coach now, because it is a real holistic approach to what we're doing. And I
Yeah.
think loosely, I suppose we were almost classed as experts, whatever that means, in that age group. Very sort of well skilled and well versed in a lot of aspects with regards to that sort of 5 to 11 range. And it is a real sort of deep dive into brain development, behavior management. We'll come onto it, but structuring session plans effectively, learning outcomes, all of this kind of stuff, which takes time. If you're going to do it right, you've got to really plan everything, and try and plan as best you can for contingencies and different eventualities. But for me, I was always intrigued with that age group. Um, and certainly the ages and stages, and the language, right down to the language that we use being relevant and age specific.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that was born out of me being that sort of young 6 or 7 year old. And I remember South Reading Leisure Centre on the hardcore area many years ago, for those who remember that. And I remember, I think it was like a boys brigade team or something, and the coach was saying something about open out, and was screaming open out, open out. I mean, I'm 6, I've got no idea what he's on about. But then I just try and run faster, thinking that the noise
What
from
it
the
means.
side will go away, so I run faster. But and it was things like that that have stayed with me, going, hold on a minute, do they understand? Does a 6-year-old understand? I do now as an adult, you will, Scott, but do they understand? They probably don't.
Yeah.
So in fact, if I say something along the lines of, I don't know, can you get somewhere where you can see both goals? Wow, I can see that one and I can see that one, and I'm probably where you want me, opened out. So it's about the terminology and reframing the question, which I think comes down to knowing your audience, knowing your players, and just effective planning, really. But yeah, that's the age group that I like, and I love the how inquisitive they are, their questioning, naivety, all of this stuff that really challenges you as a coach. And they will, at that age, they have got a voice where they will say things and challenge you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is a polar opposite to when you get into those adolescent years and you're a bit more reserved, and
I was going to say, Mark, I've got the under 15s now. I've had them since under 6s, and I do younger ones as well. And the 15s is like putting teeth. Getting like how they get through it from a session. You've got no idea if they've liked it or not. They tend to, but you don't know. With the little ones, you know where you stand. There's no doubt if it's been a good session or not in their eyes, because they let you know, which I like.
They will. Yeah, they will, and it's I mean, it's an age I love to work with, and I'm really into since going into sort of further education, I'm really into like the neuroscience type side of things. Sally Needham, I'm sure some of the listeners will know, I work with Sally at the FA, talks wonderfully on this. I would urge anyone, if they're looking to gain knowledge in this area, is to check out any podcasts that Sally's been involved in, because that is taking things to another level. So I won't spoil it for people, but it's essentially, some of the stuff she'll talk about is some work by Dr. Stephen Porges, the polyvagal theory, which is the vagus nerve that we have running from our stomachs all the way up to our brains. So that saying of gut feeling, that's where that comes from. And it just reminds me of me as that 15-year-old, filled with anxiety on the side, and it's connected with fight, flight, freeze, and shut down. And if that environment wasn't right for me and conducive for learning to take place, then you would get shut down from me. I wouldn't want to engage. So all of that stuff, when you marry it all up together, I think it can be quite powerful for us as practitioners. Yeah,
your framing there is perfect, isn't it? Because, like you say, I think a coach probably doesn't do the role justice, does it? When you say a practitioner, it's a craft, isn't it? There's so many other variables that come into play, and we can't master everything. But the more you understand some of these things, and actually, the more tools you have in your own toolkit to be able to support the players, right? And neuroscience is a big part of that now, isn't it? Understanding how players think and feel about things, and how you can support that. It's not just coaching anymore. There's so much more to it, even with under 6s, right? And maybe even especially with the younger players, right? Because the more you get that right, then hopefully the better their journey is going to be. Brilliant. Well, look, we can't go onto the main meat of the podcast today without covering your own podcast, which I'm a massive fan of and listen to lots of the episodes. So the Grassroots Football Coach podcast, a bit about how that became about and what's going on with it, and when we can get some more episodes.
Yeah, that was again, a few years ago now, and when I first took on the county coach developer role, I remember going into Berks and Bucks FA, and they mentioned about, can you put together some session plans that we can put up on the website? And I said, yeah, no problem, I'd love to, but what about a podcast? And the person at the time, it wasn't Rich at the time, Rich Brant, who I do it with, it was someone else. I think they fell off their chair and got back on their chair and pulled them together. Were like, "Are you serious?" And I said, "Well, you know, we're in a different era now, and again, if it's myself, I'm not a great reader. I'd like to maximize my time in the car." When I'm traveling an hour a day on average. So, let's look into it. And to be fair to Berks and Bucks, they resourced it. And we got the relevant subscriptions. And we just wanted to get a real, similar to you're doing, Scott, a real eclectic mix of different coaches and practitioners that are able to share their stories with their specific and relevant age groups. And, ours will range from grassroots coaches right the way up to coaches that are currently working in the game and ex-players that have, played in the Premier League and won World Cups and things. So it's hopefully there's something for everyone there. And I'm sure you'll testify to this, Scott, but for us doing these podcasts, for me, selfishly, it's another way of
Loads.
learn so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's my approach. Like, if no one listens, it's okay, I'm going to get something out of anyway. But ultimately, if you come here as a consumer of them, then you ask better questions and you listen and you learn yourself. And that's, I think, the audience is the same, right? We're all in the same position, right? We're trying to get better at what we do. So we had some great guests on it, Mark. I want some really good guests. I've listened to lots of the episodes. Like you said, it's quite nice. You can pick and kind of choose which ones you might think are more relevant to you. But honestly, there's not many I can't think aren't relevant to anybody. So what we'll do, if it's okay, we'll put the link in our show notes so people can find that nice and easy. And I'll urge people to have a listen to that because it is really good. Have you got more coming out soon? I think it's gonna. I haven't seen any for a little while. I know you're a busy man, but is there hope of more coming out soon?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, funny enough, we did one. We did one this week with a guy called Mariano, who is a coach that came on the level 1 course with us at Berks and Bucks, level 2 course with us at Berks and Bucks, and without giving too much away, he's now a coach in La Liga. And
wow,
on
that's
Sunday,
some journey.
Yeah. On Sunday, his team Granada drew with Barcelona. So
there you go. It's all down to level 1, Mark. Honestly, that's you see.
Level 1 was at Berks and Bucks, and then he's coaching against Barcelona. His first game actually was Real Madrid away. So
fair play. Yeah,
I'm a big Granada fan now, Scott.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Lovely.
We all will be after the podcast episode. We'll all have a listen. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Well, look, the point of today's conversation is really about, like, again, with you, we could have picked loads of things, but and it's a bit general, this one, but look, just trying to think about how we could, as coaches, deliver an effective training session. So obviously with your experience with the FA and all your coach development stuff, and as well as obviously work at Arsenal, you just seem well positioned to give us some ideas around some of the ways in which you might approach kind of trying to put together an effective training session. I know it's really broad, Mark, so I do apologize, but if we could kind of nail down some of this stuff, I'm sure it'd be useful. But I guess the first question really is, so we're all on the same page here. Well, in your eyes, what is an effective training session?
I think for me, look, if you wind it all back, you look at the game in its simplest form. It is directional. It is an invasion game, and it is very much random. Right. So if you look at those three things, and then if you look back to when I'm sure yourself and definitely me, again on that hardcore area at South Reading Leisure Centre when I was playing for Spencer's Wood, and bless the coaches that led the sessions, and as like now, lots of volunteers that if it wasn't for them, and I'm really concerned about this dropout rate. You can go out there and find the stats around about 14 in boys football. So if it wasn't for them, then I don't know if I'd be sat here. But my point is, these volunteers, or this volunteer in particular that I'm talking about, it was traffic cones. He used to get these big traffic cones out his car that probably thinking about it now, were nicked off the M4 or something like that, lined up, and we're like, oh no. So it would consist of running in and out the cones, or he would shout a number, you'd have to touch the cone and run back, and then we'd get the footballs up. But it would be, our question, as always, was, are we going to play a match today?
Yeah,
and he would answer, if
question.
you're good, or
If you're good, yeah, only at the end.
only at the end. It was always at the end as well. It was always at the end, and it would be linked to if you work hard,
Yeah.
And it's only now that I'm thinking, hold on a minute, but we're practicing. We've got this wonderful, wonderful opportunity on a Wednesday night, Tuesday night, Thursday night, whatever it is, to try and practice what we're going to do on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. And for us, we wasted that glorious opportunity. Yeah. And I'm not affording any blame to this particular coach or these coaches. I'm really not. But that was my experience. So then wind it forward to where we are now, and I'm thinking, me as that little kid, I want to maximize this time and play as much football as I can. So for me, is it effective? Is it realistic to the game, to that age group that you're coaching? So, being at the FA, I was introduced to whole part whole. So for those who are unaware what that is, essentially for us, it was a game at the start. The whole, which whatever that whole was, the part, your learning outcome, whatever that was you wanted to focus on, and then returning to the whole, the game at the end. But there was a link between all three. So you weren't rushing around and doing, right, I'm going to do a bit of dribbling here and a bit of passing here and a bit of shooting there. It was a theme that perhaps you noticed as a coach, and you could knit it all together. So you'd have the lovely randomness at the start of a game, and that might be player-led. You're there as a coach facilitating, but it might be player-led. So for me, for us now, it might be that, Scott, you and I are the first ones to the training session. We can play 1v1. So we're getting lots of goes at the thing that we're going to do on Saturday or Sunday. The others join, it's 2v1, it's underloaded, it's overloaded. Well, that happens on a game as well. So we get opportunities to practice that. And then you get your group there, you can work on the part bit and then return again. So there's lots and lots of opportunities. And when you think about the coaching spectrum, so constant, variable and random, my sessions that I talked about when I was a child were very much constant. So if I've got a tennis ball now and I could magically throw it through this screen at you, Scott, you'd be able to catch it and throw it back. I'd catch it and throw it back. And that's very much constant. And we'd probably be quite good at that. I could probably do it with one eye closed and throw it and catch it, throw it, catch it. I could probably do it standing on one leg. So the success rate goes through the roof. But the decision making is extremely low and so far different from what's going to happen on a Saturday or Sunday. I don't want people to think that there's not a place for it, because of course there is. If I mentioned it on the course, I think if I'm a concert pianist, then I'm going to need to warm up before I go on and get my fingers working, and etc. etc. I get that. But I think there is a real richness and a real benefit of these boys being exposed in random situations to a whole variety of different pressures from behind that you're going to get in a game, pressure from the side, pressure from the front. Muscle memory kicks in and you work out how you deal with these pressures, multiple pressures. So for me, an effective session would be, right, knowing your players, knowing your team, knowing what we, what our strengths are, what are the areas of development, what we can perhaps work on. And it might be a block of, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks of doing a similar theme or similar learning outcome. And I'm not suggesting for any minute that you would do exactly the same thing every week, because, me now as that, I'm going to get bored. So let's have some variety in there. But yeah, as close as you can get to random. And again, there's a huge misconception that came out a few years ago about letting the game be the teacher. So as a coach developer going out, and for a couple of years, it was seeing coaches at the side almost redundant and just letting the
Just
boys,
watching. Yeah.
go and
Ref in a
figure it
game,
out.
essentially, not actually
Yeah,
contributing.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
we have to be careful with that as well, because we
Yeah.
have to know when to throw in the life raft and go in and help, and that's where your coaching styles will come in, the language that you use, and you have to understand how much of your session or when you need to be a bit more command,
Yeah.
authoritarian, and going in and telling. And when there's a place for nice question and answer or guided discovery where you're guiding them to the answer. So yeah, it's a bit of a different mix, really.
Is that where do you think observation becomes a really important part of being a coach? Like, rather than going in and thinking, "Do you know what, I've got a plan, I'm going to deliver my plan." Actually, we step back and just look a little bit, and we let
Mm.
the players play a little bit and see what's working, what's not working, with a theme, and then we can add in our value where we need to. It's appropriate. Is observation maybe something that's more, not saying more relevant now, but we're more aware of now as coaches?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the plan is just like a guide, isn't it?
Yeah,
The FA will talk about plan, do, review, which I think is really good, and spending equal time planning, doing, and reviewing. But you can't you can't just live by that session plan and do it in that order, because it might not be relevant. I'll have a plan for driving to the training ground tomorrow, and in my mind it's going to take me 50 minutes, and I'm going to go the same journey as I normally do. I'm going to stop at the same place and get a coffee, but there's extenuating circumstances. I don't know about the traffic. I don't know if there's going to be any accidents on the road. I don't know really what the weather's going to be like. I can try and plan ahead, but in my mind, I'll have contingencies. I'll have another way to go if that's the case. If I'm pushed for time, maybe I can't stop and get that coffee. I'll have to go somewhere else. Might have to do without all of these different things. So it's just a guide, really. And I think you're right. I think that whole bit at the start just gives you a period just to stand back, and observe and just watch and just look. Yeah, so I think the pausing bit is really important. Just to stand back and observe. It might be if you've planned out a practice, you can just look at the pitch dimension. So this is where I think the step principle is good, that runs through a lot of the courses that we coach. So space, is the space relevant for the group that I'm working with? So whatever age range you're working with, whatever course you've been on, if it's a B license, you're looking at, am I doing a function, a phase of play, whatever it is? Have I got the pitch dimensions right? Is it a small-sided game? Is the pitch too small? Is it too big? And you might have specific reasons why you've made it that size. But again, it gives you a lovely opportunity just to have a look at that and almost swallow your pride. And if you think it is too small or too big, then go in and adjust. There's lots of strength in that, in my opinion. Is the task relevant to the group that you're working with? Are you asking them to do something that is way too difficult? We spoke on our last block, Scott, about rondos. And this is me personally, I've never been a fan. I think sometimes we look at a Barcelona or a Man City and see their first team highly paid professional international footballers doing it, and we think, well, that fit with my under fives. Actually, let's try that. And all of a sudden, we're expecting them to string together 5, 6, 7 passes. So and listen, again, there is a place for them, isn't there? But is it relevant for the group that I'm working with regards to the task? Equipment we talk about, now that might be, we've talked about recently, B license level, you might have to cone off areas of the pitch to get returns. You might have to put lanes in, you might have to put channels in, depending on what outcomes you're looking for. And then for me, I use the P as people or players. So do I need to add someone in? Am I doing a shooting practice where they've got it? So do I need to add an extra defender in? Do I need to take one away? Whatever it is. So in terms of an acronym, and those that know me, I'm not massive on acronyms. I think sometimes it's almost we get it twisted around, and we almost find a nice fancy word first.
make it fit. Yeah,
And make it
I like
fit.
that. Yeah,
Let's shoehorn some stuff
what
in.
words will work with that one? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But this one I think is great, and that pause bit, I think it gives you a time to look at the step principle and just have a look. And honestly, there is so much power in putting your hand up and going, sorry guys, I just need to make some adjustments here quickly. And if you're skillful, you can do that in the whole bit, and the players won't even notice anyway. So yeah, I think there's a lot of strength in that.
the other thing there, Mark, I think when you look back as a coach on the start of your session, I mean, you got the same players every week, but they're different each week, aren't they? You know, you
Correct.
can get a sense who's had a bad day, who's a bit tired, who might be carrying a knock. You just get a
Yeah.
sense of something. And actually, you're not going to necessarily reinvent the whole session because of that, but you might just
Yeah.
make a few allowances about certain things because, say, you're working on an individual that day and you can tell maybe they're not quite in that space for this session. I need to rethink that one. They want a little bit of loosening rather than tightening, or vice versa. Is that part of that as well? Just getting a feel for the group.
Oh, absolutely, and that'd be more of this sort of neurosciencey stuff, you know. And if you look at the Steve Kerr, I think is a fantastic basketball coach. We'll talk about connection before correction. So, you know, that connection might be, and I think it's worth doing, is really spending some time with your players. And there's a variety of ways you can do it, but finding out about them as people. You know, even in the academy world, the stats are out there for everyone to see. It's a very small percentage of people that make it, whatever making it means. But for us, it'll be challenging them as players. But for me, just as important is developing them as people. So, what sort of person are they? What teams do they support outside of your training session? You know, how is school going for them? Are they at an age where they're doing GCSEs, A levels, whatever it may be? You know, having just a slight understanding. And I think there's some wonderful moments when the players arrive, particularly if you're doing whole part whole and they're going into a game, where you can have 20 seconds, 30 seconds. That's all it'll take. Just how are you today? But with meaning. Not just a flippant throwaway comment, but with meaning. And if you can connect with them on that level, or you remember something they did at the weekend, it was their birthday party, or they had an event or something, that connection is really deep. And also, hopefully, then you gain a little understanding of how they are. But you're so right. You know, you could have 15, 16 people that come from 15, 16 different backgrounds, different environments. Some have eaten, some haven't eaten properly, some aren't feeling that great, some are from broken families, all of this stuff. And football might be their release. So we can't, it'd be remiss of us just to throw a blanket over everyone and, you know, assume that they're all at the same level.
Absolutely.
You've got to really dig deep and understand the players. I think that's really important.
Fantastic. Well, that's set up nicely then for the real crunch question. And again, I apologize, it's a little bit ambiguous because maybe it's a bit unfair, but I'm sure you can handle it. A mark session, like, so, you know, I'm not even, you can choose an age group if you want, but I guess for most of our coaches, we're not in the, you know, the academy world. Most of the coaches listen to this. We're probably working volunteer coaches, grassroots teams, maybe going once, twice a week if we're lucky, maybe a 90-minute session. If you're in that situation, you know, how would you approach it? How would your pre-session planning look? What would your setup look like? You know, what might a start, middle, and end look like, and how might you review at the end? I appreciate there's loads in there.
Yeah.
If you don't want, if that's not too much to ask, like a bit of a walkthrough to how you might go about it.
Yeah, I think depending on what age group you work with, if you think about an in possession practice, it might be that, you know, I want to gain an insight into or support them with ways to play forward where possible. So it might be something like that. So I need to work out, depending on the age, do I do that in a small-sided game, 5v5, 6v6, maybe a 7v7? Is it a functional practice where, if you'd imagine like a helicopter is hovering above the pitch and it's just a snapshot of a certain area within the pitch, again, depending on numbers? Or is it a phase of play, again, depending on the age group that I'm working with? But if I'm working with youth teams, I don't know, it's 9v9, 11v11, then I might do a phase of play. And just to explain that, you'd be looking at two complete units. So it might be a defensive unit, a midfield unit, and one incomplete unit, and then the width of the pitch. So, look, that's me talking in this utopian world where we've got the whole of it.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm a realist. I get it, and I understand it. There'll be people on there shaking their heads, going, "What is he on about? We've got a third of
we got a third of a third.
Get that. So, Scott, so that might be a small-sided game. So let's base it on a grassroots team that, let's say, under eights or something. For me, again, I would maximise the time in the small-sided games. So as soon as they come in, there'll be a connection at the start. I'm working on playing forward or attacking play. And it would be small-sided to start 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, and build it up until all of the players are there, and they'd be playing in a small-sided game. But there would be a task at the start that connects it all together. So whether that is a certain amount of passes before you score, or it might be a theme, it might be a scenario that's set. If you can score X amount, or it might be if you have, you need one touch or three or more before you score. Whatever it is, whatever the thing is, that will come into your planning. But I would definitely maximise some time in there, and then break away and look at the overall learning outcome, what it was. So again, that would be as random as it can be. So something again linked to a game, because when I turn up to football, I want to score goals. I want to shoot this ball into the back of the net. Whether it is attacking, whether it is defending, I'm still going to try and make it as directional as it can be. So we break away and do the part, whatever the part is. And again, I try and make that as random as possible, and then knit it all together at the end, back into the game again. Scott, if I'm totally honest with you, I've probably got 5 or 6 templates.
Yeah. Do you adapt depending on
100%?
Yeah,
I really do. I mean, those of you that were fortunate enough to go on to the youth awards, which have now ceased trading,
they were brilliant.
Yeah, they were, and amalgamated into the sort of mainstream courses. Yeah. Risky business on there. Oh my word!
Love it.
Yeah. 2 goals. 3
huge numbers.
Yeah, huge numbers, but it's very much player-led in terms of the numbers. It's random in terms of, right, 2 of them come out to attack us, 1 of us go out to try and defend, and I'm serving the balls in. But I think the power is, for us, is to try and disguise the learning that takes place in those sessions. Try and disguise it as much as we can. So I'm not my old coach where I'm going in and stopping it, and as an 8-year-old, I'm looking up and seeing how many airplanes I can count. I'm disguising it. So we go away thinking, I really enjoyed that today, and I want to bounce back next week and join in the session again. Because I don't know if they need to know exactly what we've been working on. I don't know if they need to know that. I think that comes out later on. A very waffled version of my session, Scott, but I haven't really got something real tangible that I hang my hat on. It's, I suppose, the point I wanted to get across is, like, I've got 6 templates, if you like, and then I kind of shoehorn stuff into those
and adapt.
But it's just, for me, it's got to look like the game.
Yeah,
look like the game. It's got to be as random as it can be, and it's got to be directional. That's it.
How do you manage your review of the sessions? Is it one of those things where you reflect back straight away? Do you get player input? How do you look back and think, actually, that's worked or hasn't worked from your perspective of things?
Yeah, I think it's different. Sometimes it's sort of a cold review, where it is, the next day. I mean, we know ourselves, don't we, whether a session's gone well, or we've kind of bluffed our way through it, or we've struggled. Sometimes it's been in the session. I remember coaching like a youth team, and I was doing a practice, and one of the boys came up and said, Mark, wouldn't it be better if we put another lane in here and we move this here and move this here? And I looked at it and thought, wow, he's so right. The Mark 20 years ago would have gone, no, we haven't got time for that. We're doing it this way, because my ego would have
I've got my plan. Yeah, I can't change that. Yeah.
I went, no, you're so right. Yeah, let's try that. And it was effective, and it worked. And if you look at Gareth Southgate, from me sort of leaving the FA, and I got the last little bits of it, but, on the international scene, I've heard that, he would get in, let's say, the midfield 3 or 4 or 5, if it was a pressing, for example, and just speak to them about how do you press at your respective clubs. So you get 5 or 6 different ways, and then it's a bit of an open forum, and you know, whether it's guided discovery or what, but he's got an idea of how he wants to do it. But let's hear your views. What do you think here? You know, so those things I think can be really powerful if you manage them in the right way. I think you've got to be careful with it. If it goes the other way, these kids are going, hold on a minute, you're supposed to be coaching us.
Yeah.
So once you get the trust and everything, but that can be so powerful.
Yeah, so true. We always ask our players, so we'll do certain games. We've got kind of games called skills pay the bills, or we've got the level down games. They know the games and they like it. But we'll always say to them, look, you know, which one of these you want to, depending on the theme, they link in certain themes and topics. So, you know, they don't get a full suite every time, but the ones that link to that theme. But once we played it or we play a new game, we'll always ask them, like, how can we improve it? And they always come up with better suggestions and better things and make the game better. Every time they'll think of something that we haven't thought of that makes it better for next time. And also, if it's not better, it's their fault, not mine. So I don't mind using it.
but it's the same, isn't it? Like if you take yourself back to when you were at school, and I have this lovely memory that fills me with joy of playing in between the English and the science block with a tennis ball, like a tennis ball.
Honestly,
might as well have been a brand new Adidas Tango or Mike Delta ball. It was this battered tennis ball, and I tell you what, there was 20 of us probably in this gap. Someone was in goal, and if you scored, you went through. But I tell you what, there was no teachers around.
No,
just done by us. We knew exactly. That was at the first break. We knew who was through come the lunch break.
Yeah.
It was just wonderful. We didn't need anyone there. It's just our imaginations and what we thought. And you're right. We live now in this FIFA generation where a lot of our players play FIFA. I was listening to a radio conversation this morning where they're talking about, you know, the knowledge now of these boys, these players, the fans is just increased. We play Football Manager. You know, we've got our own ideas here. So what a wealth of knowledge, you know, and you know, breaking news, Scott, we've had our go, unfortunately. I don't think we're going to be called up by any Premier League teams or going to be the next international super.
I've seen you play, Mark. I think you're not far away.
There is no time. So we've had our go. So, you know, the terminology's changed.
Yeah, it's a different game.
A generation now where, you know, I was coaching a group of players the other day, and I said, right, structure yourselves in such a way, come back and tell me what positions you're playing in. And someone said to me, I'm playing as a false 9. Brilliant.
Brilliant, yeah.
We've got Zinchenko at Arsenal that plays as a number 10
in
the same game. You know, he starts off as a left back.
Yeah, exactly.
As a 10 or as a number 4 or whatever. We've got inverted wingers. We've got Bukayo Saka, who started and played most of his academy career as a left back.
Yeah.
Now is arguably one of the best, you know, right midfielders, inverted midfielders in Europe, if not the world, cutting in and you know, and so, you know, and again, in my era in that position, you were a right midfielder, you'd get down the line, beat your left back, get to the byline and cross it in.
Yeah.
If you're playing in the Premier League team in that position, you've got to weigh in with, you know, double-figure goals each season as well. That's not going to suffice.
Yeah.
You know, so my point is, you know, through FIFA, through evolution, through social media, through YouTube, whatever it is, the game has evolved, and we've got to step up and put our egos to one side and invite, this is my opinion, invite this wonderful knowledge from the boys and girls, and take it on board.
Another thing, like going back to your playground days and the tennis ball, like what always fascinates me about that is very rarely do those things end up in arguments or rows between the kids. They sort things out, don't they? You know, as soon as you put adults in there, then you get a lot of these problems. So I think part of the trick, like you say, we don't just put the ball and let the kids play. We've got to be able to facilitate, practice and support where needed to. But actually, the less you're involved, like a good ref, I guess, on a good professional match, you know, you're there doing all the things, but you're not like in the center of it all. And, you know, we never had arguments as kids. You sorted them out and you dealt with things, but you know, as soon as adults are there, I guess there's a safety blanket to go to that instigates some of these things, and actually trust the players because, you know, that they can do a lot more, I think, sometimes than we give them credit for.
Yeah, Yeah, hundred
Even the
percent.
very younger ones.
Yeah, but if you
Yeah.
don't create that environment, then I don't think you're going to get that richness. You
Yeah.
know, the environment's not right, and you were like my old coach, then you're not going to be able to question. And like the lad said to me, Mark, what about if we tried it this way? I would never, I wouldn't have been able to say that.
Yeah. Yeah, because
Uh,
the environment wasn't right for you, didn't it?
it
For you,
wasn't right.
it wasn't safe. Yeah.
I look back now and I blame myself for years. And, you know, what a donut. I don't understand it. They all understand it. It wasn't me. It was the coach at the
Yeah.
time. It was
Yeah.
nothing. So if the environment's right, then you've got lots of opportunities, I think, for the boys or the girls to
Yeah.
question you and say, "What about this? We thought
Yeah.
about this," and that is amazing.
Oh, and it's amazing. Like, it's not just the feel good factor and the fact it's good life skill stuff. Actually, I think coach would be surprised how much that transfers onto the football pitch. You know,
Yeah.
that freedom to express yourself and be confident confident and comfortable making decisions. You know,
Mm.
if you create a very coach centered environment, I think it can stifle that you know, that freedom of play that you see on a football pitch sometimes, and making decisions, not just in an attacking way and being creative. I mean, actually just making good choices about when to defend and close spaces down. If the
Yeah.
players feel they can make their choices and they're in a safe space, I think you see more returns on that as well. So it's not just feel good stuff, is it? It
Mm.
has a practical point for football too.
Yeah, and how many times you see at the top level, professional level, and there'll be people on here that would relate to this with their clubs, that their club's struggling and haven't won a game for, 10, 11 games. And then a new manager comes in and they win the
Yeah,
first game and they win the second game. It's the same players,
yeah.
exactly the same players, but it's a
Change the
new lease
environment.
of life. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
someone that says, go on, guys, I'm new here. Just go and express yourselves. The same players.
yeah,
Surely it points to environmental factors and yeah,
absolutely.
trying to get that bit right, and that's what I say. It's a balance. It's all a balance, and I think the quicker we can get rid of this, this sort of old-fashioned approach of, I tell you do.
Coach is king.
And I,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. It's all about
I,
me, middle of the pitch. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we don't we try not to tell necessarily people what they should and shouldn't do because hey, you know, everyone's environment's a bit different. But you know, if there was a few red flags or a few things that, you know, you may want to think about not doing that or staying away that as part of like trying to get an effective training session. Anything that comes to mind, anything that you wouldn't do if you didn't want to kind of not make it effective.
Yeah, I think what I wouldn't do, and I would have done, I wouldn't do now, is I wouldn't exclude the parents and the external stakeholders. So I would very much bring them into my or our way of thinking. I'd very much include them. I would very much, do team talks and training session points in earshot of the parents. And the main reasons for that is, you're going to get those parents at the side of the pitch and on game day that are shouting things out. And if you're not careful, they're going to be shouting things that are totally opposite of what you've worked on in those training sessions in the games. And what you don't want is little Johnny or Sarah looking around every 2 minutes because coach is saying something, granddad shouting something out, and my nan's the other side, and so like. If you can get the buy-in from the start from the parents, and you can, it might be this thing, you'll be working on a project soon, I'm sure, for your UEFA, and
Started it. Yep.
yeah, and looking at, what is this club about? What are we trying to achieve here? Because, I never once played in the team. Never, and I've looked back at this, where I knew what the manager expected of me or us on a game day. So then subsequently, then that lends itself to jargon, old school jargon at half time, whereas we throw a blanket over everyone and go, we're not doing this, we're not doing this, and things like we're not talking enough is a classic that I hear.
Yeah.
You look at someone like Luka Modric, who played in a World Cup final, I think it was. You're not going to hear Luka
Don't
Modric
say a
say
word.
anything.
Yep.
He was captain. So sometimes I think we hide behind things like that. So if you open it out and say, come on, what are we about? Get the players' input, let the parents be privy to that information as well, and then we're all kind of one team at the side, and it might be then that I can speak to that parent who's quite vocal and I don't know, give them a job to do. Can you watch the opposition and feed back at half time? See
Yeah.
what they're doing. What are their strengths? What are their areas that we could exploit? Can you do a little tally chart for me? how many times we've entered the opposition's half, or how many effective passes we've played, or how many effective crosses we've played. Just give that to me at half time and I can present that to the team. All of these things, I think they're the biggest things for me. I would definitely include the parents, and definitely the players as well, the boys, the girls, definitely 100% get their input.
You mentioned a bit earlier as well about, the game's changing and we've got to be thinking ahead. Obviously, with your work, obviously, at Arsenal, the pre-academy, and just coaching more broadly, we have to prepare our players really for the next 5-10 years, not today, right? Is there things we need to factor in around that? I'm thinking of decision making, maybe, and just being more autonomous, like giving them more opportunities to take control of things, maybe more variation in how they play positions, maybe variations formations. How is the game changing, and how can we best prepare our players for that?
Yeah. What a great question. I was speaking to a primary school teacher a few weeks ago, and she said to me, Mark, my job teaching 7 and 8-year-olds is quite difficult in the fact that I'm preparing them for jobs that don't exist yet. And then I thought, wow. And I look at my boy who's 16 now, and he's going through the schooling system, and algebra and all of this stuff that I found boring at school, he's had to do. No one's taught him how to be a millionaire from TikTok or YouTube, or to start a business.
AI and that kind of stuff.
ChatGPT, all of this stuff. And I think it's the same with football. We're potentially coaching these boys and girls at 7 and 8 for positions that don't exist yet.
Absolutely.
I think it might be Girona in La Liga that are flying high at the minute, that almost depersonalized positions, and they have spaces on the pitch that they cover and they work. Like, where it's going, I don't know, but certainly for us, we think, if you're producing or looking to produce Premier League players of the future, you can bet your bottom dollar they need to be able to deal with the football. So lots of stuff on the ball, being able to master the ball at a young age. Those golden years, so they tell us, of 6 to 12, where you can really master the ball. Because, a right back in this day and age, if you look at Ben White, for instance, converted from a centre back, if you like, but very comfortable on the ball, presented by a left winger. It doesn't mean that he gets scared and passes it back. They still want to play forward and penetrate where they can. If he needs to entice that player and eliminate, there's no problem. He'll be able to do that. So being able to deal with your duels effectively will only come from being able to master the ball at a younger age. And I think it's very difficult to start talking about mastering the ball once you get out of those golden years, sort of 12 plus. I think it becomes difficult. And certainly in this country, me growing up, it's been obsessed with passing the ball. I don't quite get it. Even the analogy we use then is me passing a tennis ball to you. But that's the thing that we do, isn't it? As a dad, as to a young child, you stand there, right, kick it to me.
Stay on it.
We're not enjoying the football from a young age. It's getting rid of it.
Well, it's funny because I remember hearing some age ago, and it's a cultural thing. So in like the Northern European countries, particularly, like we're very much the kid gets the ball as a little and just kicks and runs with it or passes. And then, but I think in the Latino countries, like your Brazils, South American countries, they get a ball and they stay on the ball, and you can tell fast for that 10, 15 years, and you can see the difference it makes, right?
Yeah, and I think there is a huge misconception with it over the years, and people have said to me, what do you mean that we just sort of dribble up sort of blind alleys and Luka Modric, who we mentioned before, is a great example of someone who stays on the ball just that little bit longer. Strikers non-league is almost the ball goes up and you've got to pop it around the corner in one touch. Well, actually, if you can secure it and hold it and give the team a chance to get up the pitch and join you and share it and spin and, being able to deal with the ball in every position. We've got a situation at the minute with goalkeepers, and you've got a goalkeeper in David Raya, who you alluded to then, played futsal at a young age, so very used to be able to deal with the ball. and the way that the manager wants to play, you've got to start off attacks and get us playing from the back, but being nice and comfortable. And that's not to say that Ramsdale's not, because he's very, very good with his feet as well.
Yeah.
You're talking fine margins, real fine margins, but ultimately players all over the pitch that can deal with the ball. And I think certainly our way is, you get to 12, 13, 14, you can't be just dribbling the ball and taking players on. There's got to be the right time, passes and more sort of concise passes. And if you looked at Chelsea last night, I say last night, whenever this goes out, and listening to the commentary of that game, and it was kind of a lot of safe passes, recycled passes across the back, but no real sort of penetrative passes. And I think sometimes it can look quite good on stats, individually and collectively, being able to just get it and pass it, it can look quite good, and it can be misleading actually, those stats.
Yeah, definitely.
Those real sort of killer passes that break lines and stuff are more sort of high risk, and leave themselves open to be cut out. So obviously your stats are reduced. But I think just being comfortable, being able to master the ball at a young age, to be able to hopefully dominate possession a bit later on.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mark. Look, I will get shot down if I didn't ask you this one question that we've got, you here, part of the Arsenal Pre-Academy. We know that it can be quite a crazy world of, those younger age groups and all these parents and players that are very keen to get their child into like a professional academy. And for many of these kids, it's the best place for them to be, and they're working hard, and that's the right space. Sometimes maybe not everyone at that moment in time, but aspirations nonetheless. Would you have any tips for players, parents, or coaches of players about how they might want to best support the players they've got to, if they've got aspirations to get into an academy, what the best way of going about that be for them?
Yeah, I think I could, speaking for us, we've got lots of scouts that go out and watch games, and Saturdays, Sundays, in the week, whatever it is, they're always out there watching. And I think for us, it is, again, we talked about the stats before, but really for us, it's important that we create an environment where we're going to develop these young boys as people first. It's really, really important. And, because you never know. Hopefully they'll go on and have the careers that they want, and play professional football and play for, play in the Premier League and play international. Well, that's a real utopian view, but for us, it is developing as people, and maybe you can end up being that pilot or that accountant, or starting your own business, or whatever it may be. So that's for us. It's just, well, certainly for me, it's just equally as important. And also for us, it is so important, and for me in particular, that dropout rate that concerns me is that it's got to be enjoyable. Just because you're in an academy, it doesn't mean all of a sudden that you shouldn't lose that love for the game. That's why we've all got into it, and it's just so important.
Yeah, fantastic. Mark, do you have any? I don't need to ask an unfair question here. Do you have any concerns about, especially younger players now, playing too much football? Now, look, don't get me wrong. When you're in the academy system, they've got their regime, and I'm sure that's well thought out and well planned. But I hear a lot of the kids that are in there also doing the extra stuff in between those sessions and stuff. And there's a whole set of no days off now, which kind of gives me a little bit of I'll be honest with you, a little bit of a shake when I hear it, because it's these can be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-olds that are literally playing every day of the week. And should we be worried about that? Maybe not necessarily today, but certainly maybe 5 or 10 years time, physically and emotionally.
Yeah, I agree, Scott. I do. I am concerned with it. I think the Premier League have put in some wonderful sort of ruling in place in terms of contacts, and almost taking the sort of professional element out of academy football, particularly at a young age, which I agree with. And yeah, I mean, for me, it's just as important at these young ages to go and try other sports as well. Go and try basketball, perhaps go and do some martial arts or swimming or whatever it is. There's some wonderful learning opportunities in those younger years. And again, I know it's potentially a societal thing, and it's completely different now to when I was young. But I would be, out in that back garden and experimenting and
Yeah.
just doing lots of different stuff away from football. And yeah, for me, I think there's so much now. There's a huge one-to-one market, and people have got some fantastic businesses out there, and they do really well. But I think for some of the boys that are playing, as you kind of mentioned, like every day of the week, I think that is far too much. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm sure it will level itself out. I just, I think, God, you think about people's needs, stuff, and also, like, even I
Yeah.
know with that, and I'm part of the problem here because we coach the kids and we have them one session a week and they'll be doing, other stuff. But our sessions, I think, are pretty good. They're high intensity, lots of ball rolling time. We do all right. But you
Yeah.
think, God, get in the old days when the sessions were a little bit slower, maybe not as good, but they were a little bit slower. Maybe the strain wasn't quite as much physically and mentally. Or actually, now, if they're getting
Yeah.
a good session on Monday, then they're getting an academy session on a Tuesday, then a one-to-one on a Wednesday. Like, it's not when we used to play, when we'd go and play the park with our mates every night and there was no days off, but actually we were dipping in and out how we wanted to, and it wasn't nothing like this.
Yeah.
So in some ways, I don't want to be a victim of our own success. I mean, we've done really good things through the work the FA's done, the youth modules, everything else. I know my own coaching is a lot better. It couldn't have got worse, but it's definitely a lot better than it was 10 years ago. But in some ways, the downside to that is that, the kids have to work super hard. It's fun and
Yeah.
it's engaging, but it's relentless.
Yeah, I think it's a good barometer for me. It's certainly at grassroots level is when the boys come in and the or girls come in, but boys in my case, they chuck their drink bottles down.
Yeah.
They don't know where they've landed. They just sprint into the venue and bang.
Yeah.
They're volunteers.
Yeah.
They're volunteers. It shouldn't be,
Sure.
yeah, it shouldn't be a
Yeah.
chore. It shouldn't be a drain. It shouldn't be like work to them like a job. They are volunteers who love the game,
Yeah.
and I always think that's a good one. Yeah, when the drink goes flying at the end of the session, have you seen my drinks bottle?
Yeah. Well, they've
That's
turned up and they're into it straight away. That's what you want. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I
Brilliant.
love it.
Mark, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure turning tables on you. I have got one last question. We ask
Yeah,
all our guests this one. So, if there was one thing you could change about the world of coaching, what would that be?
really good question. I think almost relinquishing this sort of power, Scott, and really being open to the inquisitive minds of the young players in front of us. I think that's the main thing for me.
Love it. Great answer. Couldn't agree more. Mark, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure staying
Thanks,
tables, like
Scott.
I say. Thank you for everything. Next plans for you? What, obviously, besides getting us all through our UEFA, which is going to be a job and a half. I know that I've seen the gang you've got to work with. So, good luck with that one, but we'll do our best, I'm sure. But what's your plans for the next few years? What you're hoping to do?
Yeah,
Is it business as normal?
yeah, I think so, Scott. I've got no sort of immediate plans. I've really sort of delved into a bit of further education. So, fortunate enough to just completed my masters, I'm quite into sort of education and learning now. So, I want to sort of delve through some of your podcasts. I try and listen to a podcast a day when I'm in my car. It used to be music on, and I sort of figured that I'm just listening to songs that I've always listened to. So how
Yeah, I
about
know all the words to those.
yeah,
Yeah.
just to educate myself a little bit more, and yeah, just keep pushing and striving because the game is just changing all of the time, and just trying to stay with it really, and not drift too far behind.
That makes it fun, doesn't that? That's what's good about it. It's like it's constantly evolving. I've
Yeah.
got to ask you, magic tricks, Mark. What we didn't get across on the podcast, and we can't do any, I'm sure, because it's an audio, not a visual thing.
Yeah.
But what's this about? You entertained us fully on over the weekend, and when there was a quiet moment or two, there wasn't many when there was a quiet moment. So you
Yeah.
were doing some kind of trick of some description.
Yeah.
Are we going to see you on stage at some point, or is this just a sideline to the
Well,
education?
I don't know where it come from. Maybe it was lockdown, actually. Maybe it was lockdown, and yeah, again, I think it probably, if I wind it back, goes back to the environment. So whether it's on a UEFA B course, whether it's in front of a group of players, it's just creating an environment where you just make people smile a little bit and they can just relax. Because I know, or I think, then I'm going to get the best from them in that hour or 2 hours. If I feel threatened in an environment, which I did at school, where the maths teacher threw a pencil across the room and said, "Oh, you answer this question," we've spoken about it before, but for me, it goes to shut down, and you're not going to get anything from me. And I probably don't want to come back next week, and I might pretend that I've got a stomach ache and etc. etc. If you create that environment, whether it's a magic trick or you make yourself vulnerable at some point, and you can relax the group, then I think you get lots of golden stuff back. I think that's why.
There you go. Look, well, I think some way you've managed to relate the magic back to football and coaching again. So well done, because you're dead right. Superb. Well, I'm looking forward to the next block. I'm looking forward to the next lot of magic tricks and everything else that comes with it. Thanks so much for today. If people want to get hold of you, Mark, is there a good way to reach out and make contact?
I think via the podcast. I don't really do sort of social media anymore now, but all through you, Scott, I'm here, and it's an open house where we are. I'm always prepared to share. We're all in this together. It can be quite tough sometimes. So those of you who know me, I'm happy to share resources, and Rich and I share quite a lot on the podcast as well, as I'm sure you guys do as well. So they'd be the best avenues, really, Scott.
Top man. We'll put the links in the show notes to your podcast. Mark, thanks so much again. Really appreciate it. And you're there for us. You've done this for us. So very grateful. Have a great half term, and I look forward to seeing you. Hopefully for the next block. We'll start on the next block.
Cheers, Scott. Thank you.
Cheers. This episode was brought to you in association with our friends at Soccer Coach Weekly. Established since 2006, Soccer Coach Weekly is a leading source of inspiration and advice for all grassroots coaches. Join thousands of youth soccer coaches just like you, saving time and effort in their goal of having the most effective, enjoyable and successful coaching journey for them and their players. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode.